empty out your pockets, man. What do you got in there? And he pulls out 30 grams of weed. So we started Music City Dream Cars in September of 2013. We came up with the idea. In December of 2013, we were open for business. We ended up hitting exactly the 5-year mark. December of 2018, into last year is when we officially closed our doors. A few years ago, Uber had one of its regional headquarters in Nashville before they moved away. And so we got to know a few of the executives in the car rental business, and they ended up deciding to use us for a big video commercial they were shooting with Hershey's Take 5 candy bar. It's a new candy bar. They want to do a promo with Uber. The idea behind this was you have an ordinary Uber customer use the promo, which is promoting the candy bar, and their $10 Uber is going to result in a nice little surprise. Anything from a Ferrari California to a Ferrari 430, Lamborghini Gallardo is going to be picking you up for a $10 Uber ride. The reactions were hysterical. To see these people's faces when you pull up in a cool classic car or exotic is just great. We come back to the showroom after a long day of shooting. The director of the video is there, one of the top guys at Uber. We're trying to impress everybody, right? So we get the showroom clean. We want to park the cars nice and pretty around the showroom. And as we're doing so, we hear this loud squeal. We all run over to the crime scene, right? And it's the executive director. His kneecap has been smashed by the Ferrari F430. My own employee has backed the Ferrari up into the director and has pinned his knee up against a concrete block, and he's terrified, right? So we're all running around. We're just frantically circling them, seeing what we can do here. We pull the Ferrari forward, of course, and this guy must have just overreacted, right? Because he walks it off. He walks around. He shakes it off, and next thing you know, he says he's absolutely fine. And we make sure we call him every day for like a week. Like, are you okay? Are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine, man. You guys don't have to worry about a thing. And to this day, we have never been sued by Uber. Shortly after we start Music City Dream Cars, a couple of months later, we quickly realized there's not enough demand in Nashville to support just hourly and daily rentals. We had 5 great cars, but we needed to do a little extra, and chauffeur was a pretty easy idea, right? There was already several chauffeur companies in Nashville that were proven successful. We're a little different with exotics, but we start getting some business. We start getting some chauffeur business, right? And so late one night, I'm at the office a lot later than normal, and the Rolls Royce Ghost comes back. It's 2010 Ghost. I kind of surprise my employee, comes back. He doesn't know I'm there, and so I kind of sneak up on him. But I want to make sure he's getting taken care of because the rental goes way longer than expected, and I want to make sure he was tipped well. So I'm like, hey, man, how much you get tipped? And this guy's very honest. He's getting real quiet on you. This guy's never quiet. And I'm like, something's going on here. And yeah, I can tell something's in his pocket, right? So I'm like, empty out your pockets, man. What do you got in there? And he pulls out 30 grams of weed. And I'm like, okay, you're going to have to explain this one to me. And he's like, hey, guy didn't have any cash on him somehow, but I got tipped with weed and didn't want to get stiffed on the rental, right? We found out later that the guy that rented the car that was being chauffeured around was one of the top dealers in the state of Tennessee. Notorious kind of guy. And he had been using our cars to deal drugs. One of our best customers early on was Delaney Walker. He's a buddy of mine. He's just an awesome guy. 82 for the Tennessee Titans, one of our best players. And he always treated the cars well. And outstanding, charitable guy, always helping out the community. Love the dude. He kept renting our W12 Bentley. He starts renting it every weekend. So I'm like, man, you're really enjoying this one car. And I ask him what's going on, and he's like, John, man, I kind of messed up. It accidentally slipped. This guy, Delaney would never lie to anyone, right? It slipped that he told this girl that it was his car. And he's like, man, I messed up. I slipped one day. I told her it was my car, and I didn't think it would be a potential relationship. And she's flying in every weekend to see me, and I'm hooked, man. This girl's great, right? Every weekend, I can't even know how many months, every weekend he'd come in, rent the Bentley. He was hooked. This girl was something special, right? Well, it was great for us too, because some of your best clients are those who tell other people it's their car. They're not slinging donuts in a parking lot. They're treating the car well because people think it's their car, right? Unfortunately for us, he of course lands a huge contract, $60 million, and so now he has his own fleet of cars. He has a Lamborghini Aventador, and he bought a Rolls Royce Ghost soon after that. He went from Bentley to Rolls, He was in the car club for a while, but then, yeah, he left when he got his new contract. Word starts getting around that we're Christians, and so we use the newspaper a little bit to share our faith, and, we love Jesus, we love some cars, right? Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, word gets around, so quickly we're asked by a local church, to bring some exotics to the early morning Sunday morning service, right? And so it is Cross Point, and if you're familiar with Nashville, it's a little more of a liberal church, so to speak, a little opposite of your fire brimstone churches, your Southern Baptist. They're a little more loose, right? It happened to be a slow weekend for us, so we had a bunch of exotics to take out. And hey, we'll go to church. I mean, we go anyway, so we bring out the Lamborghini Murcielago, Ed's old car. We bring out Corvette Z06, some Teslas. We think, they're doing some event maybe after church, but no, they want it right there before the sermon and just parked in front of the entrance, right? The comments that I heard as people walk into the sermon and they walk by this Lambo, I mean, we heard everything from, the Rockefellers made it to Nashville, to, must be a televangelist, Joel Osteen is in town, and this is where all my tithing money goes. I mean, we heard some great comments, and growing up Christian, it's like, it's okay to have nice things, and you can sometimes use nice things as a tool for ministry, right? But you don't really want to display this. Yeah, so not long after we started Music City Dream Cars in Nashville, we realized daily hourly rentals weren't enough to support the model, so we had to get a little creative. We noticed other companies. We kind of stole the idea from Gotham Dream Cars. They do a lot of corporate events, and specifically the Dream Car Tour. So the idea behind this is you work the corporate angle. They got bigger budgets to work with. It's usually safer and safer kind of crowd, right? You get about 5 or 6 exotic cars, anywhere between 5 or 10 customers, and you give them the chance to drive multiple cars in one afternoon, as opposed to just renting one car for the day. You also have to have a good road for this. So in Nashville, we have the Natchez Trace Parkway, only 12, 13 miles from the city. It's a beautiful windy road, no stoplights, no stop signs. We're out there, we're having a good time. We're about halfway through the day. We pull off to the side, we find a good place to park, and we realize we're missing one car. We're like, where's Billy? Billy's, we call him Bad Boy Billy Betts, because he's a little bit of a daredevil. And he's in the Aston Martin, and he's missing. Like, where is he at? He was trailing us. We parked 5 of the 6 cars, missing one. A couple seconds later, we hear a roaring engine coming through the hills, and next thing we know, we see the V8 Vantage fly by, and we're right near the Natchez Trace Bridge. And if you're familiar with the bridge, it's where all your photographers hang out. People are everywhere. This is not where you want to speed. Absolutely never speed across the bridge, right? It's where the police are. Little did we know that someone, sadly, was just recently killed near the bridge by an oncoming car. And so cops were already out, like, busting the speed demons, right? And so here comes Billy. He's flying across the bridge at well over 120 miles per hour. So by the time Billy pulls around and parks next to us, I mean, within 3 or 4 minutes after that, we were swarmed. So we had 2 or 3 police officers show up, and we have our 6 cars lined up. We tell our customers to go off to the side. We'll take care of this. It's a little embarrassing. They're laughing. They think it's hilarious because they know they're off the hook, right? The police officers, they show up. They're fuming. They're angry. They start pounding us with questions, and we're quiet as a mouse. We just really didn't say anything. We didn't want to admit to any guilt, but we also just were a little nervous. They tell each person, it's six of us, 6 cars. They say one person go to each car, like, go to the car you were driving. So we did it. We obeyed the order. So they separated us, and one by one, they tried to pin us to see who was speeding. So they would drill us with questions. So they start with the guy with the Jaguar F-Type, beautiful F-Type R, and they like, was it you? Was it you? Like, all you hear is no sir, no sir, no sir, and then they move on to the next car, the Audi R8, and were you speeding, sir? No sir, no sir, and all you hear was no sir, it wasn't me. And then they go on to the Lamborghini Huracan. That was the one I was driving with a customer, and they pinned me down and just drilled me with questions. And I respectfully, I promise it wasn't me, right? I promise. And so they move on. Next is the Corvette Z06, no sir. And then next is the BMW i8, and drilled them with questions. They could not get anyone else. And then finally, in the back, and at this point, we know Billy's up. He's last, right? We know something's about to go down. This guy is a fight. He's going to put up a fight. this could get ugly, right? And so we were like, should we intervene? Like, but we kind of all froze and we just like let Billy do his thing, right? They walk up to Billy. They look at this Aston Martin V8 Vantage. My opinion, one of the ugliest exotics to ever be built. It's an older model. It's not a very pretty exotic, right? They look at the Aston Martin V8 Vantage and they turn around. They assume there's no way it was that car. I think they thought it was an ordinary car. And so they don't ask Billy a single question. Then they start pinning us down again. They ask us more questions. And then, so my GM, Will Summer, he's a smart guy. He whispered in my ear. He said, hey, look at the police officers' cars. And I look over and it's Franklin Police. I'm like, yeah, so, hey, this is a federal parkway. If you're on the federal parkway, he's like, they don't have jurisdiction here. They can't do anything. I'm like, okay, you tell them that, right? And so he blurts out, hey, you guys can't do anything. You got no jurisdiction here. Next thing you know, kind of everything starts kind of shifting. They didn't have anything to say to that. And they asked a few more questions, lowered their tone a little bit. Apparently that put them in their place. They eventually let us go our merry ways, and we're off the hook. You got to be careful when you run a business and you can't give things away. Not to be mean, but it's just smart business in many ways. Well, one of my longtime customers, his name is Mo Money, and we still, after many years, I have no idea what his real first name is. He won't tell me, but he's a nice guy. We've been buddies, but he's mysterious, and he's been a pretty good customer up to this point. He rents the cars, brings them back in good shape, right? Well, he wants us to chauffeur him this time, and we get the Rolls-Royce Ghost. We get it nice and pretty, white on white, seashell interior, classy as you can get, right? So we're chauffeuring him. I have one of my drivers take him, and they get back, and he's gone at this point. And I ask my driver, hey, how did it go? What did you guys do? And found out that he was chauffeured in the Ghost to a funeral. And so he shows up to his own friend's funeral in a Ghost. Obviously wanted to steal the spotlight. And I have to call Mo. He's a buddy of mine at this point, and I'm not afraid to maybe lose a customer. But I call him like, dude, did you really be chauffeured to a funeral, to your friend's funeral? I'm like, yeah, man, what's wrong with that? I'm like, you want to memorialize, his passing, and it's his day, right? And his family. You don't want to steal the spotlight. And so I had to, you attract a lot of interesting people in this type of business. We had customers of all types, and just the stories are endless. But every now and then I tried to use it as a way to coach someone on some life lessons. Not long after we started Music City Dream Cars, we're renting out awesome cars and we're living it up. But you get friends that are coming out of the woodworks. I had people call me like, hey buddy, man, I've been wanting to catch up with you. I'm like, oh yeah, man, let's catch up. And and I heard you started an exotic car rental company. I would love to drive one day. And of course, some of my friends said they didn't have any money to spend. I knew it, right? And so, I was a little too nice at first. I let a couple people drive around the block, or this and that, and realized quickly that as you kind of have to separate business and charity. If there's one person I'm going to let drive for free, it's my brother-in-law, right? He was actually my best friend, and then he married my sister after I moved away. He finally comes to town, and so I'm going to let him, of course, drive one of the dream cars. He chooses the Lamborghini Gallardo at the time. We do the full training, and so next thing you know, he's finally in his dream car, the Lamborghini Gallardo, and he's 2 blocks from our showroom, and he calls me. He doesn't make it very far. He said, man, I've already gotten a speeding ticket. And I'm like, you couldn't have made it 2 blocks from the showroom. It was during, I guess, in the afternoon when the school was getting let out. So the speed limit through there was actually 10 miles per hour. And so he gets a speeding ticket for going 17 in a 10 miles per hour zone, in a school zone. He said the police had no mercy on him. He looked at the guy and said, Usain Bolt can run faster than this, right? And they weren't playing any games. He comes back with his head down, ruins his big day, first time driving an exotic car, and he gets a speeding ticket for going 17 in a 10. Well, if you're from anywhere near Nashville, then you're very familiar with Steeplechase. It is an annual event that Nashville hosts. It's a thoroughbred horse race. One of the tailgates that we partner with decided they wanted us to bring out the Ferrari and show it off at the tailgate, right? So, I'm sitting here, I'm driving this F430 Spider, 2006. It's got a level 3 Capristo exhaust, super loud, and I'm all alone in my full custom suit, showing up to Steeplechase. And I'm pulling through the infield. So imagine 25,000 people around, and they're yelling profanities at me. I'm this dude in the Ferrari convertible rolling through the mud. I end up getting stuck in the mud. And so my tires are spinning. People are just still making fun of me. And so I have to get out of the car, face the enemies, face to face, get verbally harassed some more. I'm not going to dare ask them for help, right? And so I make my way to the tailgate, and just so I can grab a couple of my friends, go back to the car, just so I can get verbally harassed even more. And we pushed the car out of the mud. So we were able to clean it off a little bit. We displayed it at the tailgate, and we'll forever be known as the guys with the Ferrari. And the exhaust was so loud, it was annoying everybody. In the exotic car rental business, you always wonder what will rent better, classic cars or exotic cars. Well, we wondered that in the early days, but we were taught quickly exotic cars, right? But you kind of have to pick your poison, so to speak. Classic cars are definitely desirable. They'll rent as well as exotics, but they're unreliable. Whereas you have exotic cars they're depreciating pretty quickly. And so we tried out a few classics. Actually, the very first car we bought was actually a Ferrari 308 GTSI, 1984. And then quickly we borrowed through the profit share model, where we didn't own the car. We borrowed it from another owner, which is a terrible idea in the end of the day. But we borrowed an Excalibur, only 97 in the world, beautiful. It's like a great Gatsby car. That's the Excalibur Roadster, built in 1988, modeled after a 1938 Mercedes. Great for your 1920s parties. We ended up getting a lot of different requests. We got requests for homecomings, requests for parades, of course, a lot of wedding getaways, music videos, and being in Nashville, and a lot of music videos, and even some TV production stuff. We get a call, and they want to escort the Grand Marshal and the big Franklin Parade. Classic historic American town. My phone was blowing up one day, and we found out that the Excalibur has died in the middle of the parade. All of a sudden, there's a big gap between the Excalibur and the next car. We got floats, the massive floats, running into each other at this point. It's getting a little chaotic pretty quickly. And, the Grand Marshal literally has to get out of the vehicle, total embarrassment, and has to go find another ride. And then we try to run to the scene, but we had some people have to push the Excalibur off of the line of the parade, and ended up being pretty much of a disaster. As a paying customer, you don't expect to have to figure things out. You expect it to work for you, right? If you are an owner of a classic car, you know how it works. You've tested it. You're very familiar, and you drive it when it's convenient for you. But when you put something like a classic car into a rental fleet for the public to use on their big day, like a wedding or a parade, you run into a lot of issues. So when we started Music City Dream Cars, Ed Bowman actually helped us get started. We bought a few cars from him, and he coached us on what to do, what cars to buy, and he told us to buy the Ferrari California as a rental. It'll be one of your top rentals. We didn't believe him. I'm more of a speed guy. I like the loud exhaust, mid-engine Ferraris, V10, V12 Lamborghinis. But he said for sure buy the Ferrari California. So we took his advice and we did so. In our car club, we had a guy named Clayton Quisenberry. Still a great friend to this day, great guy. But he was being a little mischievous in the Ferrari California. He takes it to Dawson Springs, Kentucky, a town you've probably never heard of. And he's a celebrity there. I mean, he's a country music star in Nashville, local celebrity, great music. But he's big time up there. He runs some festivals, and he's up there for a big concert. And all his friends are in town, apparently, because we noticed that there are acceleration alerts nonstop. We have a system called Azuga. With exotic car rentals, you have to track the car. You have to know, you want to know where your tachometer reads are. You want to know if someone's hard braking consistently, or if they're hitting, of course, a speed limit threshold. Ours was 110. If you hit 110, we'd be notified via email. If someone is aggressively accelerating over and over, we're also notified via email. Well, of course, he does it on a Sunday when we're not near our computers, and we know the guy, and he's been a great customer up until this point. We got back to the office on Monday. We counted out on the computer 478 excessive acceleration alerts. And we call him up. I'm yelling at him like, dude, you probably blown the motor. Luckily, we hadn't tweaked the acceleration perfectly, so it wasn't like he was necessarily redlining it every time. But it's hard to get your feet per second correct so that hey, he's almost redlining it, versus someone just trying to have some fun and getting it up to 5,000 RPMs. Apparently, he said every one of his friends wanted a ride, and he would just take them up the block, come back, and he had lines of people getting rides, and he would just gun it to 60 or 70, brake, and then over and over. Well, then we had another situation with the Ferrari California, completely separate, where our seats weren't working. The electronics, we couldn't figure it out. None of the electronics were working. Next thing we know, we find a high heel underneath the back of the Ferrari California seat, and it's literally, the wires are, and the cables underneath the seat are twisted around the high heel, and we have no idea how this possibly happened. And then some other guy comes in, and we ask one of our friends to investigate the scene, and he's like, I know what happened. There were some non-car related issues happening in the back seat, where she was obviously on her knees on the floorboard in the back seat, and her high heel was up underneath the seat and did quite the damage to the Ferrari California. And of course, by the time we notice it, we don't even know exactly who did it. So we're just left with a huge bill, another pain in the exotic car rental business. Yeah, despite 478 aggressive accelerations, we had a mechanic look at the car and ended up in good shape. No major damages, and it's a reliable car for sure.
Going somewhere in a hurry, ma'am? Let me explain your options.
Never mind, I got this.
TheTicketClinic.com.
Use the code VINwiki at ticketclinic.com for a 10% discount on their ticket fighting services.